My father blamed my sister for my mother's death, and now he regrets it as she calls me daddy. I am a 24-year-old male and the older brother to my 5-year-old sister. For privacy, I'll call her Belle. I've always been the one who had to take care of her. For background, my parents had me as teenagers. They were 15 and 16 at the time, and even as a child, I could sense they regretted having me. After my birth, both my parents were essentially disowned by their families. My mother had to drop out of high school to care for me, while my father worked 2 jobs to provide. Even then, they couldn't afford a home. We lived with my mother's older sister until I was 9, when my father earned his General Educational Development GED certificate, got a better job, and moved us out. Although our living situation improved, it was clear they believed I had ruined their lives. When I misbehaved like any normal child, they'd remind me that they gave up their lives for me, making me feel guilty for my behavior. Even when I was well-behaved, they showed little affection. I rarely got new clothes they'd buy from thrift stores and only got me nice things when absolutely necessary, such as for birthdays, parties, meeting friends, or their weddings. My birthdays were minimal affairs. They'd give me a cupcake and a single gift, never anything I truly wanted. Despite everything, I was still a child craving their love. As I grew older, I accepted that I wouldn't receive it and made peace with that fact. I think my parents noticed this change, and during my teenage years, mainly my mother began treating me better. By then, however, I was no longer the child begging for their affection. I had never received their love, and I had stopped asking for it. I can't say I continued to hate them. My feelings became neutral. In my eyes, we were practically strangers. They raised me with minimal effort, never engaging in meaningful conversations or spending quality time with me. They knew nothing about me, so their sudden attempts to act like parents felt awkward at best. When I was 18, my mother became pregnant. I believe this was when they gave up on trying to mend our relationship, as they could start over with a new child. They didn't treat me poorly, but it felt like we were strangers living in the same home. When I turned 19, my mother gave birth to a girl but died due to complications. This devastated my father. He resented me for not being as grief-stricken as he was over her death. She had barely been a mother to me, so there wasn't much to mourn, and he blamed his newborn daughter for killing his wife. After this incident, my father was rarely home, leaving me to care for my sister. I had to take a break from college after coming home from classes one day to find my sister screaming with hunger in an unchanged diaper while my father was out drinking. I took on full-time care of Belle and confronted my father multiple times, but he always reacted angrily, ending conversations by saying I could always leave Belle at a fire station. Eventually, I gave up trying to force him to be a father. Despite everything, I truly loved Belle. She was the sweetest, cutest child, almost always smiling and sleeping through the night. Once she was old enough, I enrolled her in daycare and continued my education while working night shifts. I always made sure to keep my afternoons free to spend time with her. Belle always knew who her biological father was, and as she grew older, she tried to spend time with him. However, this ended quickly after he lost his temper with her, causing her to fear him. I realized she saw me as a parental figure, despite knowing I was her brother. When she started preschool, I discovered she was telling people I was her father. I never mentioned it to her until she gave me a Father's Day card she made in preschool. I then told her she could call me Dad if she wanted, and since then she's been calling me Daddy. My father eventually got a girlfriend and began to change. He stopped drinking, found a better job, and even started paying most of the bills, aside from the portion I agreed to pay to continue living there. He never really tried to be a father to Belle, though he did start eating breakfast with us, albeit in silence while Belle and I talked. A few months ago, on Belle's birthday, I planned a party and invited her preschool class. My father attended, presumably because his girlfriend thought it would be a good opportunity to meet his daughter. While Belle was opening gifts, I surprised her with a child-sized electric car. She screamed with joy, hugged me, and called me Daddy. After the party, when Belle was asleep, my father confronted me, demanding to know why his daughter was calling me Daddy. I asked if he seriously didn't understand and explained that I was the one who raised her, bought everything for her, celebrated her milestones, and didn't abandon her. He went to bed silently. Since then, he's tried to play the role of father and talk to Belle, but he's a stranger to her. She's a sweet girl, so she tolerates his attempts at conversation, but he can tell how uncomfortable she feels, and it clearly hurts him. As selfish as it may be, I don't want their relationship to improve. Just as she sees me as her dad, I see her as my daughter. I've graduated from college and am looking for a better job so I can move Belle and myself into our own home. I might be a bad person for taking some satisfaction in my father's regret and misery as he realizes he's ruined his chances of having a relationship with his daughter, but I'll never be as cruel as he was. Thank you all for the support and advice. As suggested, I may delete this post soon to prevent my father from discovering it before I'm prepared for a potential custody battle. I'll use the advice you've given me. I know posting this was risky, as people might identify us, but I've never had anyone to discuss this with before. It was a relief to finally share everything.